The sun hung low in the sky of Valsar 7, casting a warm golden light over the human colony. Life here had been relatively peaceful. Over the years, humans had established themselves among the stars, working alongside various alien species to create a harmonious society. The colony was a blend of cultures, each alien race contributing their knowledge and technology to the collective growth of the settlement. Yet, despite the outward signs of unity, not all species were content with humanity's progress. Among them was the Kaldor, a powerful and ancient alien race whose history was built on the domination of weaker species. To the Kaldor, humanity was an annoyance, an upstart race that had risen too quickly and was beginning to threaten the delicate balance of power within the galaxy. They viewed human adaptability and ingenuity as a serious threat to their supremacy, and they couldn't allow this new species to continue its rapid expansion. In secret, the Kaldor devised a plan to remove humanity from the colony. Rather than using brute force, they decided to strike at the heart of the human scientific community, knowing that the intellectual progress humans had made in fields like interspecies communication was pivotal to their success. The target was Dr. Lena Carter, a brilliant young scientist whose work had brought humans closer to understanding the many alien species around them. Dr. Carter had made significant strides in fostering cooperation between humans and the various species of the colony, and she was widely respected for her intelligence and determination. The Kaldor knew that if they could eliminate her, they would cripple the human effort to fully integrate with the alien world, sowing doubt among their allies and possibly stalling humanity's growth for years to come. The Kaldor's plan was as subtle as it was dangerous. They sent a small, inconspicuous package to Dr. Carter's lab. Inside was a vial containing a strange, translucent liquid. The Kaldor had engineered it to be a slow-acting poison, one that would slowly wear down the human body, making it appear as if Dr. Carter had simply fallen ill. Over the course of weeks, the poison would subtly weaken her immune system, causing her to become lethargic and mentally foggy. The Kaldor believed that, eventually, she would be too weak to continue her important work, and the humans would be forced to take her out of the field of research. In their minds, it was the perfect plan. No violence, no confrontation, just the quiet, insidious erosion of a brilliant mind. Dr. Carter, however, had no idea what awaited her. One morning, as she prepared for another day in her lab, she received the package. She assumed it was a gift or a sample from one of the other alien species, something she had grown accustomed to receiving over the years. The note inside was simple. For your research, from an admirer. It seemed harmless enough. Without giving it a second thought, Dr. Carter injected the serum into her arm, believing it to be a harmless stimulant that would help her focus during a particularly demanding week of work. At first, there were no noticeable effects, and she continued her research without hesitation. But as the day went on, something strange began to happen. A wave of fatigue swept over her, making her eyelids feel heavy and her limbs sluggish. She brushed it off, attributing it to the stress of the long hours she had been putting in lately. However, as the days passed, the fatigue grew worse. She began to feel more than just tired. Her body ached, and her thoughts seemed to be clouded by an almost unbearable fog. Her colleagues noticed the change as well. Dr. Carter, once sharp and full of energy, was now struggling to keep up with the demands of her work. But despite the obvious signs of illness, she refused to give in. She pushed through, determined not to let anything stop her. What the Kaldor did not anticipate, however, was the strength of the human immune system. The poison, which had been carefully crafted to target humans specifically, was not as effective as they had hoped. Instead of deteriorating Dr. Carter's health in the way they had planned, her body began to fight back in ways the Kaldor never expected. The human immune system, known for its remarkable adaptability, responded to the foreign substance with an intensity that no alien species had ever witnessed. Dr. Carter's body began producing antibodies at an astonishing rate, fighting off the poison with a ferocity that left her both stunned and amazed. Her fatigue began to wane, replaced by an unusual surge of energy. Her mind, once clouded, began to clear, and she found herself thinking more sharply than ever before. Little did she know, the Caldor's attempt to destroy her had actually triggered something much more powerful. A force they could never have predicted. The incredible resilience of the human spirit. The Caldor, confident that their plan was going according to script, had no idea that their carefully laid trap was about to backfire in a way that would change the course of history. Dr. Carter's body wasn't failing. It was evolving. Dr. Lena Carter sat alone in her lab, the dim lights casting long shadows across the polished work surfaces. Her mind had been consumed with research for days, and she welcomed any distraction that might ease the pressure. As she sifted through a stack of incoming messages, her eyes caught a small, plain package resting on the corner of her desk. There was no return address, only a simple note that read, "A gift for your continued work from a neutral ally." She paused for a moment, then shrugged. It wasn't uncommon for other species to send samples, gifts, or substances for research purposes. Most of them were harmless, benign. After a moment's hesitation, she carefully opened the package. Inside was a small vial containing a pale, shimmering liquid. It looked almost like some kind of serum, its surface swirling in delicate patterns. At first glance, it appeared to be some sort of experimental health supplement, perhaps a stimulant designed to enhance mental focus or physical energy. Dr. Carter was no stranger to such things. She had tested various serums before. The note implied that it was a gift from a neutral alien race, one with whom she had maintained a cordial relationship for years. With little more than a passing thought, she decided to try it, assuming it would help her push through the long hours she had been working. She uncorked the vial and carefully administered the serum, her mind already racing through her next set of calculations. At first, nothing happened. She waited, but there was no immediate effect. Shrugging, she turned back to her console, diving into the latest round of data she had been analyzing. But then a strange sensation crept over her. It was subtle at first, just a wave of fatigue that made her blink harder to clear the haze in her vision. Maybe I'm just exhausted, she thought, rubbing her eyes. But as the minutes passed, the sensation deepened. It wasn't the usual tiredness she'd grown accustomed to. This was something else. Her muscles felt heavy, as though they were filled with lead. The air around her felt thick and stifling, making it hard to breathe properly. A quick glance at the clock revealed that it was only mid-afternoon, yet she felt as though the day had dragged on for hours. Over the next few hours, Dr. Carter's condition worsened. She felt herself growing weaker with each passing minute, a deep, overwhelming tiredness invading every part of her body. Her hands, once steady and sure, now trembled as she typed into her console. Her mind, which had once been sharp and quick, seemed to slow. The clarity she had always prided herself on began to slip away, replaced by a cloud of confusion. It must be the serum, she thought, reaching for her communication pad to contact a colleague. But even that effort seemed like an insurmountable task. Just as she was about to send a message, a sharp, strange sensation raced down her spine, like a jolt of electricity. She winced and stood, almost stumbling as her legs buckled beneath her. But something unexpected happened. The ache in her body didn't simply stay. It grew, yes, but it also seemed to shift. Her heart raced, her senses flaring to life with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. It was as though her body had activated, responding to the poison, coursing through her veins in a way she had never imagined. Her vision sharpened, every detail of her lab crystal clear, even the smallest particles of dust dancing in the light. Her skin prickled, as if every nerve ending was fully awake. She could hear the faintest hum of the colony's ventilation system, the soft breathing of the plants in the far corner of her lab, and her thoughts, once sluggish, came flooding back, each one clear and focused. Dr. Carter froze, suddenly, aware that her body was fighting back in a way that defied all logic. The poison, which was designed to kill or incapacitate her slowly, was being absorbed into her system, yes. But rather than weakening her, her body had begun to adapt to it. She could feel her immune system reacting, ramping up in speed and efficiency far beyond what she had thought possible. Cells seemed to multiply within her, forming antibodies with a ferocity she had never experienced. It was as if her entire body was working in perfect coordination to push the poison out, fighting it with a power that felt almost alien. The dizziness subsided, replaced by a strange sense of vitality. She felt stronger, more alive than she ever had before. She took a deep breath, steadying herself as her mind raced. What is happening to me? The serum wasn't just affecting her in the way she had expected. Her body had begun to evolve, adapting to the threat at an astonishing pace. The weakness she had felt earlier seemed to be retreating, replaced by an energy she couldn't quite explain. As she looked down at her hands, she noticed something even more extraordinary. Her skin had taken on a faint shimmer, and the faintest trace of a glow pulsed beneath the surface. She felt different. More than just revived. She felt enhanced. At that moment, Dr. Carter realized that what she had thought was an ordinary gift had turned into something much more dangerous. The Kaldor had underestimated her resilience, and now, their poison had become a catalyst for something far beyond their control. She had become something they had never anticipated. But instead of succumbing, she had been transformed into a weapon. A weapon that was only beginning to realize its full potential. As the days passed, Dr. Carter's symptoms became more pronounced. Her body felt as though it was on fire, the relentless surge of energy pulsing through her veins like an electric current. Every part of her being seemed to be shifting, changing, evolving. At first, it was subtle. Her fingers tingled as though they were being sharpened, her muscles tightening with new strength. But soon, it became impossible to ignore. Her hair, once a dark shade of brown, began to lighten, strands turning a striking silver white. At first, it was just a few strands, but within hours the change spread across her entire head. Her eyes, once a soft brown, began to glow with a faint, unnatural intensity, the irises flashing with a strange golden hue. The transformation was undeniable. Something had happened to her. Something far beyond the effects of the serum she had taken. Dr. Carter looked into the reflective surface of her console, barely recognizing the face staring back at her. She was no longer just a tired scientist struggling to finish her research. She had become something else. Her immune system, once designed to protect her from everyday threats, had now gone into overdrive. It was synthesizing antibodies at a pace that no human body was ever meant to sustain, neutralizing the poison in her bloodstream far faster than the Kaldor could have imagined. As the poison's effects started to wane, she felt her metabolism accelerate, her energy levels spiking with each passing moment. The strange sense of fatigue that had once overtaken her was now replaced by a newfound vitality, a power that surged within her like an untapped reservoir. What had once been a subtle reaction to the poison was now becoming something extraordinary. The Kaldor had underestimated humanity in the most dangerous way imaginable. Their carefully crafted weapon, designed to cripple Dr. Carter and humanity's scientific efforts, had instead unlocked a dormant potential within the human body, a potential they had never anticipated. Dr. Carter's transformation wasn't just physical. Her mind was now sharper than it had ever been before. Thoughts raced through her mind at lightning speed, and she began to see the world around her with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. Every detail was vivid, every sound sharp and clear. Her senses were heightened beyond anything she could have ever imagined. As the changes continued, Dr. Carter realized that her very cells were evolving, adapting to the poison at an exponential rate. It was as though her body was rewriting itself, transforming into something more resilient, more powerful. She could feel the strength coursing through her limbs, the rapid regeneration of her tissues, the newfound precision of her thoughts. It was as if the poison had pushed her body to the edge of its limits, and in doing so, had unlocked an entirely new realm of human potential. News of Dr. Carter's miraculous survival quickly spread throughout the colony. What had begun as a quiet, seemingly insignificant event had turned into a phenomenon that no one could ignore. Her colleagues, who had feared the worst when they saw her deteriorating health, were now left in awe of her rapid recovery and the strange changes that had overtaken her. Some saw it as a medical miracle, an unexpected triumph of the human body's resilience. Others, particularly the alien factions, began to see it as something far more dangerous. Whispers of Dr. Carter's transformation spread like wildfire, and many began to question what this meant for the future of the colony. If humans could adapt to a poison that had been designed specifically to kill them, what else could they adapt to? What other potential did humanity hold? The Kaldor, of course, were not pleased. Their plan had backfired in a way they had never expected. They had hoped to weaken humanity, to stifle their progress, and instead, they had inadvertently unleashed something that could make humanity even stronger. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but they were not ones to back down easily. They quickly realized that their poison had done more than just survive. It had catalyzed an evolution in Dr. Carter's body, unlocking abilities that were completely foreign to them. The Kaldor, for all their advanced technology, had failed to predict the resilience of the human body. They had believed themselves superior, but now they saw that humans could adapt faster than they had ever imagined. But rather than retreating, the Kaldor doubled down. They knew that if humanity was to become an even greater threat, they had to find a way to stop it before it was too late. Their pride, their desire for dominance, wouldn't allow them to simply accept defeat. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter, now fully aware of her newfound abilities, began to realize the potential that lay before her. What had been a near-fatal setback was now the key to humanity's survival, a weapon she would wield against the forces that sought to undermine her people. The stakes had never been higher, and Dr. Carter knew that the Kaldor would not give up easily. But neither would she. Her survival was not just a miracle, it was a sign of things to come. Humanity was ready for what lay ahead. As Dr. Carter's condition began to stabilize, the changes in her body became undeniable. Her senses had sharpened to an almost superhuman level, and with each passing day, she felt her strength grow. The poison, intended to destroy her, had unlocked abilities that were far beyond anything she had ever experienced. Her reflexes were faster than any human's, and her senses were so heightened that she could hear the faintest sounds from miles away. She could pick up on the smallest vibrations in the air, feel the movement of life around her, and even detect shifts in temperature before they happened. It was as if her body had evolved into something entirely new, and as she practiced, she found herself growing more and more comfortable with these extraordinary abilities. But the Kaldor, unaware of the full extent of her transformation, were growing desperate. Their initial attempt to poison Dr. Carter had backfired spectacularly, and they now feared the consequences of allowing her to live. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, and they were terrified of what might happen if other humans could replicate her survival. The Kaldor had no intention of allowing Dr. Carter to become a symbol of humanity's strength. They feared that if her newfound powers were allowed to develop, humans might soon be capable of far more than just surviving poison. They might become unstoppable. In their minds, Dr. Carter had to be eliminated, and fast. To that end, the Kaldor dispatched an elite team of assassins, specially trained to deal with high-value targets. These warriors were skilled in stealth, assassination, and subterfuge, honed to perfection over centuries of war and conquest. They were confident that, even with Dr. Carter's new abilities, they could take her down before she had a chance to fully comprehend her power. They moved swiftly, infiltrating the human colony with ease, slipping through the shadows, ready to strike. Their plan was simple. They would enter Dr. Carter's quarters while she was still recovering, overpower her, and eliminate her before she could pose a real threat to the Caldor's control over the colony. But when the assassins arrived, they quickly realized that things had changed. Dr. Carter was no longer the vulnerable scientist they had once underestimated. The first assassin to step into her quarters was met with a sharp, almost unearthly sound, the high-pitched click of Dr. Carter's heightened hearing. She had already heard their approach from miles away, and with a swift, graceful movement, she turned to face them. The assassins barely had time to react before she leapt into action, her reflexes faster than anything they had encountered. In the blink of an eye, Dr. Carter dodged the first assassin's strike, her body moving with an agility that left him disoriented. She struck back instinctively, her hands and feet moving with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. The assassins, skilled as they were, found themselves outmatched at every turn. Dr. Carter moved with fluidity, dodging blows and countering with speed that surprised even her. Each movement felt effortless, as though her body was in perfect synchronization with her mind. She was no longer simply reacting. She was anticipating every move before it happened. Her heightened senses allowed her to predict the assassins' actions, and her newly enhanced strength gave her the ability to overpower them with ease. The Caldor's elite assassins, though trained for years to kill with precision, were thrown off balance by Dr. Carter's new abilities. One by one, they found themselves on the defensive, unable to land a single blow. It was as if the very essence of their mission had slipped through their fingers. Dr. Carter, with an almost otherworldly intuition, seemed to be in control of the fight at every moment. She was no longer just surviving, she was thriving. Her movements were precise, deliberate, and quick, each action followed by a reaction that seemed to flow from some deep, primal part of her being. It was clear to the assassins now that this was not a scientist they were facing, but a force to be reckoned with. As the final assassin attempted to strike, Dr. Carter moved in a blur, her body responding faster than the assassin could comprehend. With a single, graceful motion, she disarmed him, pinning him to the ground. The fight was over before it had even begun. Dr. Carter stood over the incapacitated assassin, breathing heavily, her mind racing. She had never imagined she could do something like this, never thought she had the capacity for such skill and strength. The poison that had been intended to kill her had not only failed, but had transformed her into something far beyond human limitations. In that moment, Dr. Carter realized the full scope of what had happened to her. She wasn't just surviving anymore. The poison had given her powers that, until now, she had never believed possible. And with that realization came a chilling certainty. The Caldor would never stop hunting her, nor would they rest until humanity was under their control. But she had already changed the rules of the game, and she wasn't about to let them win. The Caldor's failed attempt to eliminate Dr. Carter sent shockwaves through the entire colony, igniting a firestorm of debate and fear among the alien factions. The Caldor, once confident in their superiority, found themselves on the defensive, their plot to rid the colony of humanity now exposed for all to see. But it wasn't just their failure that caused turmoil. Their allies, particularly the more powerful and conservative alien races, were deeply afraid of the implications of Dr. Carter's survival. They had never expected humans to adapt so rapidly, and they were terrified of what might happen if humanity could replicate the abilities Dr. Carter had unlocked. The very idea of a human race capable of evolving so quickly, of becoming stronger, faster, and more resilient than ever before, was a threat that could destabilize the balance of power in the colony. In response, the Kaldor's allies began to rally together, demanding that humanity be expelled from the colony. They argued that humanity was no longer just a minor presence. They had become a dangerous force capable of undermining the fragile peace that had existed for so long. The suggestion was clear. If humans were allowed to remain, they could soon become a force of unimaginable power, one that could no longer be controlled. The Kaldor, backed by their allies, began to push for a full-scale effort to isolate and remove humanity from the colony, framing them as a threat to galactic peace. But while the alien factions argued, something remarkable was happening among the humans themselves. As news of Dr. Carter's survival spread, whispers began to circulate throughout the colony. People began to notice subtle changes in themselves, slight improvements in strength, endurance, and even intelligence. Some found that they could process information more quickly, while others reported heightened senses, much like Dr. Carter's own transformations. At first, these changes were small and hard to define, but they were undeniable. More and more, humans began to exhibit the same signs of heightened ability that had made Dr. Carter a symbol of human potential. It was as if the poison had triggered something deep within their biology, a dormant power waiting to be unlocked. Dr. Carter, once just a scientist among many, now became the face of this new wave of human potential. She was no longer just a survivor of a failed assassination attempt. She was a living testament to the resilience and adaptability of the human race. Her transformation had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve, not just in terms of survival, but in terms of growth and evolution. She had proved that humans were capable of more than anyone had believed, and in doing so, she had inspired countless others to see themselves differently. No longer did they view themselves as weak or inferior to the alien races. They had witnessed firsthand that the human race was capable of overcoming even the deadliest of challenges. Meanwhile, the human leaders, now fully aware of the Kaldor's plot, began to organize a response. They realized that this was no longer just a matter of survival. It was a battle for the future of humanity within the colony. They began to rally their allies, drawing on the support of those species who had once viewed humanity as insignificant, but now saw them as essential to maintaining the fragile balance of power. The Kaldor's plan had backfired, and the humans were not going to let it stand without a fight. Dr. Carter's influence had become a rallying point for humans across the colony. The once divided and scattered human factions now found themselves united under the banner of survival and strength. The humans were no longer simply trying to avoid extinction. They were fighting for their place among the stars. As the human leaders prepared for a diplomatic showdown, they knew they had something powerful on their side: proof. Dr. Carter was living, breathing evidence that humans were stronger, smarter, and more adaptable than the alien races had ever imagined. They were no longer weak outsiders. They were a force to be reckoned with. The stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the colony had ever seen. The Kaldor and their allies were determined to push humanity out, but the humans were ready. They had Dr. Carter, and now they had each other. The coming war would be fought not just on battlefields, but in the very hearts and minds of the beings that called the colony home. And for the first time, humanity stood tall, ready to fight for their future, their place in the galaxy, and their newfound power. The tension between the humans and the Kaldor reached a boiling point as the war for control of the colony finally erupted. The Kaldor, who had once viewed humanity as weak and inconsequential, now found themselves facing a united front of determined humans and their allies, all galvanized by the threat to their survival. Dr. Carter, having come into her full potential, stood at the forefront of the human forces. Her enhanced intellect allowed her to think several steps ahead, devising intricate strategies that outmaneuvered the Kaldor's best efforts. Her mind, once focused solely on research, now saw the battlefield as a puzzle, each move a piece to be carefully placed in order to achieve victory. Her physical abilities were just as formidable. She moved with speed and precision, her reflexes faster than anything the Kaldor could anticipate. Her strength was beyond the capacity of normal humans, and she used it to her advantage, cutting through enemy lines with a power and grace that left her enemies in awe and fear. The Kaldor's advanced technology, their weapons and their poison, all of their carefully crafted advantages, proved useless against humanity's unyielding will to survive. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Kaldor had underestimated their opponents. They had believed that their technological superiority would ensure victory, but now they were retreating, their forces dwindling, and their confidence shattered. Despite the retreat, the Kaldor were not ready to concede defeat. They had fought for too long to give up easily, and their pride would not allow them to simply abandon the colony. As they regrouped, they unveiled their most advanced biological weapons, genetically engineered monstrosities designed to overpower any force that opposed them. These creatures, bred for one purpose, to destroy, were unleashed with terrifying speed and savagery. The Kaldor believed that these new weapons would turn the tide of the war in their favor, wiping out the human resistance once and for all. But the Kaldor had again miscalculated. What they failed to understand was that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology or sheer physical strength, but in their creativity and adaptability. As the Kaldor's biological weapons rampaged across the battlefield, the humans responded with resourcefulness and innovation. Rather than relying solely on brute force, the humans quickly adapted to the new threat. Dr. Carter, using her enhanced intellect, coordinated with the human scientists and engineers to develop countermeasures against the Kaldor's creatures. They crafted traps, weapons, and strategies that the Kaldor had never anticipated, exploiting weaknesses in the monster's design and turning their own creations against them. The Kaldor, who had once believed that humanity's lack of technological advancement made them easy prey, were now learning the hard way that humans were more than just survivors. They were masters of ingenuity. For every weapon the Kaldor deployed, humanity responded with an innovation of their own. The Kaldor's fear grew as it became clear that their biological weapons were not the solution they had hoped for. Instead, humanity's creativity, born from the very adaptability that had allowed them to survive the poison, was proving to be their greatest weapon. The battle raged on, with both sides locked in a deadly contest of will and intellect. The Kaldor may have had superior technology, but humanity had something far more powerful: unity. Every person, from the soldiers on the front lines to the scientists in the labs, worked together as one to ensure that humanity would survive. The bond between them grew stronger with each challenge, and their shared determination to protect their future kept them fighting, no matter the cost. As the Kaldor regrouped, their position became more precarious. The humans were not backing down. They were not just fighting for survival, but for their right to exist, to thrive, and to prove that they were more than just an afterthought in the grand scheme of the galaxy. With each new tactic the Kaldor tried, humanity responded with greater resilience, their unity and ingenuity shining through in every skirmish. The Kaldor, once so sure of their dominance, now found themselves in a fight they hadn't expected. They had underestimated humanity's capacity to adapt, and as the battle continued, it became clear that the humans were not just surviving, they were winning. The final confrontation came as a clash of giants. Dr. Carter stood before the Kaldor leader, a towering, imposing figure whose alien biology dwarfed her in size and strength. His muscles rippled beneath his dark alien skin, and his eyes burned with the confidence of someone who had always relied on sheer power to dominate. It was clear that, physically, he was far superior to any human. The ground trembled with each of his heavy steps as he advanced, his massive frame casting a long shadow over the battlefield. The Kaldor leader believed that his size and strength would be enough to crush the human resistance once and for all. But what he didn't account for was the human spirit and the extraordinary resolve of Dr. Carter. The battle began with a roar of fury as the Kaldor leader lunged at Dr. Carter, his massive hands reaching out to strike her down. But Dr. Carter, her reflexes sharp and her mind even sharper, danced out of his grasp, moving with a fluidity that took the Kaldor by surprise. She had long since learned that physical strength alone was not the key to victory. It was her intellect, her ability to adapt, and her speed that would decide the outcome. The Kaldor leader's strikes were powerful, but they were predictable. His overconfidence, his belief that no human could possibly match him, was his fatal flaw. As he swung again, Dr. Carter ducked beneath his blow, using his own momentum to her advantage. She darted to his side, her movement swift and calculated, dodging and weaving around him. Every strike he made seemed to miss by mere inches, and every time he tried to land a blow, she was already a step ahead. Her mind was calculating every movement, every flaw in his form, every opening in his defense. She exploited them all. The Kaldor leader's pride turned to frustration as he realized that no matter how hard he fought, he could not land a single hit on this human woman who had outsmarted him at every turn. Dr. Carter, for all her new physical prowess, was no longer relying solely on her strength. Her intellect, now enhanced to unimaginable levels, guided her every move. She understood his movements before he made them, anticipating his attacks and countering them with precision. It was a battle of wits as much as it was of physical strength, and in this realm, humanity had the upper hand. The Kaldor leader, for all his power, could not match the speed of her mind. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Dr. Carter saw her opening. The Kaldor leader, exhausted and enraged, made one final desperate lunge. In that split second, Dr. Carter moved with a burst of speed, sidestepping him and using his own weight to send him stumbling forward. Before he could recover, she used her newfound strength to land a decisive blow, striking at his vulnerable side. The Kaldor leader fell, unable to continue the fight, his pride shattered and his arrogance obliterated. It was over. The Kaldor, defeated and humbled, were forced to face the reality that humanity was no longer a race to be dismissed. Dr. Carter's victory wasn't just a personal triumph. It was the victory of an entire species. The Kaldor, who had once planned to erase humanity from the colony, now found themselves bowing to the unstoppable force that was humanity's will to survive and thrive. The leader of the Kaldor, bruised and broken, could only accept the truth. Humanity was no longer an insignificant species, no longer weak or inferior. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The alien factions, who had once looked down upon humanity, now stood in awe of their resilience and strength. The Kaldor's defeat was a powerful reminder to all that underestimating humanity was a dangerous mistake. The other alien species, who had once kept their distance or even conspired against humanity, began to treat them with a newfound respect. Dr. Carter, the woman who had started as an unassuming scientist, became a hero in the eyes of the galaxy. She was not just a symbol of humanity's strength, but a living testament to the untapped potential within every human being. As the colony began to rebuild and heal from the scars of war, Dr. Carter stood at the forefront, leading the charge. For a future of peaceful coexistence, she had proven that humanity could not only survive in the face of adversity, but could rise above it. The Kaldor, now broken and humbled, would never again underestimate the human race. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not through violence or fear, but through unity, adaptability, and sheer will. Dr. Carter knew that this victory was only the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, one where they would not just survive but thrive, pushing the boundaries of what was once thought impossible and reminding the galaxy that no force, no matter how great, could ever keep humanity down.